Hi guys, so today I'm going to show you using a pattern how to make a bodysuit. So I am using pattern 8513 by Simplicity. The reason why I went and got this pattern because I know some people like to sew with a pattern, and it's harder for me to explain how I've made mine because the one that I made was a long time ago and I just adjust from that. But I did cut this out a long time ago as well. So I thought that since I had already had it cut out, I will go ahead and show you guys how to use this Simplicity pattern 8513, and the sizes goes from extra small to extra large. So I'm going to show you guys today how to make a bodysuit. You can also use that for your swimwear. If you plan to make swimwear, you can use that as well. You can use it and alter from it as well. So I have 100% polyester fabric because I am going to be subbing on it as well. But I'm going to show you guys the cutting process, and then I'm going to come back and I'll have my sheets printed, my designs printed, then we'll sub it, and then we'll actually sew it together. So it'll be a combined 3 segments that I'll combine together. On this one, we will just be cutting it out. I did have a pattern that I'm using, Simplicity 8513. I'm using this pattern so that people who want to follow along, that have to use or feel more comfortable using patterns, this is the pattern piece that you can use. This is going to be a one shoulder bodysuit that I'm going to make 4 of. I've already cut 2, so I'm going to cut 2 out today with you guys, and then I'm going to sub 1 on camera so you guys can get the gist of how to do it. So let's get started. So with the pieces, you only need 2 pieces, and this is piece number 10. Excuse me, it's been folded up in my thing for so long. So you need pattern piece number 10 for the front, and you're going to need pattern piece number 3. So you need pattern piece number 10 for the front, pattern piece number 3 for the back. You cut the front piece on the fold, so there is no seam in the front of the there's no seam in the front of the pattern. In the front of the bodysuit. I am going to make this a little bit bigger than the extra large, because the person that I'm making it for, she's a little bit bigger. So I'm going to just wing it and make it a little bit bigger than the actual pattern. So you just cut out the size that you need, whether it's extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, and you use yours accordingly. I'm just going to cut a little bit bigger than this actual pattern for the person that's going to be doing the photo shoot with me. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. But before I cut this out, get pattern weights, and these are just washers that I got from Home Depot many moons ago. So it keeps the tissue paper and your pattern paper from moving, and it keeps it stable in one place while you are cutting, because you do not want your pattern to be offset. And another thing with cutting and folding your fabric, make sure when you have your fabric folded, this piece right here that's folded, you can feel all layers of fabric and not one is like out of place. You want to make sure your fabric is folded correctly. The fold is towards me, the salvages are away from me. But I have this double folded, so I have it folded and I have it folded again because I'm going to make 2 front pieces and 2 back pieces of the other one. So piece 10, I'm going to cut 2 pieces. You only cut 1 for the piece that you're going to cut for yourself, but I'm cutting 2 because this is going to be for a photo shoot and I need 4 of them. So I'm going to cut this, like I said, a little bit bigger than the person that is going to wear it, to make sure that it's going to fit her. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Just even it up, even it back out, making sure that the fabric stays even. And this is the part where I'm going to make a little bit bigger, just a little bit. But you still want to make sure you follow how the pattern is still going. So you still want to use the same indentions that they have. Now, with sewing regular patterns, you always want to make sure that you transfer any markings on your patterns. That is the correct way to do it. So you would cut a notch here for this, and cut a notch there, cut a notch there, and cut a notch here. But I am only using this as the pattern for what I need to do. I will not cut those notches out, but for the correct way to use a pattern, yes, you should cut out your notches, and you should line your notches and match your notches up on your other piece of the, so the back, you will match up your notches to your back piece. So that's how you know that the pieces are lining up together, when you match the notches that you cut for the markings that's on the pattern piece. But this is not a pattern this is not a pattern video. It's more so just using this for those that are not used to making their own patterns. So I wanted to do it so that you guys can make bodysuits, you can make swimwear, and different types of things, just using this base as a pattern. So we have the 2 pieces cut for the front. I'm gonna sit that to the side. So you have 2 front pieces, and now we're going to cut the back pieces. I like to make sure my fabric is even, so I cut off all of my extra pieces. This little piece here, like if you were cutting something that has straps, you definitely can use this as, use your scrap fabric to put straps on something. They also make good bows for kids. Like you could use those pieces for other things as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be straps, but you can use those, your scrap fabric, for something else as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this even. Okay, so I'm going to sit this to the side. And this ruler I did get from Joann's. I got this ruler from Joann's many moons ago. And I got this cutting mat from Hobby Lobby. I got the cutting mat when it was on sale at Hobby Lobby because they don't have coupons. So I always just, when I go in there, I just go adjacent to the weeks that they have what I need on sale. So this week it's fabric. Next week it will be accessories. So next week, this is May 30th when I'm taping this. So this following week fabric is on sale. So the next following week, the accessories like the cutting boards and the scissors will be on sale, and they'll be 50% off. So if you are looking for like cutting mats and things like that, I always tell people it's best to just get them while they're on sale. And who wouldn't like 50% off? So now I have my fabric ready to cut piece number 3, which is the back. And make sure when you are aligning your fabric, just kind of roll your hands down the side to make sure that your fabric is all nice and neat, and you can feel all pieces together, and there's no gap in between this fold. Because if it's a gap in between the fold, please know that one of your pieces are going to be smaller than the other. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out piece number 3, which is the back. Now this fabric that I am using is 100% polyester fabric. There is no right or wrong side on this fabric because both sides look identical. So when you're using fabric that has designs on them or directional fabrics, please make sure that you are cutting your pieces out that are going the correct way. You don't want to cut something. Hold on one second. So just say you have this fabric. You don't want to cut it upside down. You want to make sure that you are cutting your fabrics right side up. So when you are cutting, make sure you cut right side up and you are not cutting upside down. So that's something to remember as well when you are cutting fabrics that are a directional fabric. You want to make sure that you are not cutting them upside down, especially if you don't have any more fabric. Sorry, I'm just folding my fabric back right again. Especially if you don't have any more of that fabric. So you want to definitely make sure that your fabric is going to cut the right way. So I have my fabric back folded correctly. The fold is to me. The salvages are away from me. So we're going to get ready to cut. Now, like I said, this fabric doesn't have a direction. It's not a directional fabric. So I can just cut it either way because both sides are the same. So you're going to make sure you have all of the wrinkles out of your pattern because you want to make sure you get as precise of a cut as you possibly can. So I'm going to use my pattern waist again just to hold it down. And make sure my fabric is nice and creased. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this pattern out as well. Now this is not cut on the fold, so that's another thing you need to look at. When it does not have, let me go back and show you guys. When cutting pattern pieces, when it says cut on the fold, you will see center fold and it will have a line like this that signifies that this piece is cut on the fold of a fabric. So that means that there is no front seam or a seam on the front part of that garment. This is the back, and as you can see, this back piece goes in because most people, the way our bodies are made, we have that indentation in our back, and then it proceeds to go down to the waist and down to the bottom of the pattern piece. That piece is not cut on the fold. This is your grain line, and it's just telling you that this particular line needs to be going the same direction as your salvages. So you want to make sure that you line this up, and it's called your grain line, and you want to make sure it's a little line. Let me see if I can zoom in. So it's this line with the two arrows, an arrow on each end. It's just letting you know that it needs to be cut the same way that your salvages are going. So you want to remember that as well when cutting pattern pieces as well. Because by this being a commercial pattern piece, and for those that are not really used to making their own pieces and they go by commercial pattern pieces, you want to make sure you follow as much as the commercial guide, the instructions are telling you, because they have it in their instructions to go a certain way. So you want to be able to fix it to lay a certain way. Now, if you are just using it for like myself and can alter it later, then, because that's literally what I'm doing. I'm just doing it for the video so you guys can see how to make it with a pattern piece. But I don't want to mislead people who only use commercial patterns. Make sure you follow what the pattern guidelines is saying that you should use. So I'm going to cut this out. Now I just noticed this pattern piece is flipped backwards. That would be a no-no if this was a directional fabric. But because this fabric is the same on both sides, it doesn't really matter. I'm literally just using it as a pattern piece, but you guys want to make sure that it is flipped right side up. Unless you have a fabric that's just like mine and you're not doing, it's not something that has a signified certain piece on it or something like that, you would not have to do that. But because I flipped it the opposite way, it's upside down. It doesn't matter to me because with this piece, my front and back pieces are the same. Like they look the same on the front and the back. That will be the only reason why you could get away with that. If this was a directional fabric, I would have to start over because the pattern piece was flipped inside out. So I guess this is why we do videos, to be transparent with everything. But I do want you guys to know, because I don't want you to, and I don't know if anybody saw that, but I did. So I did want to make sure that you guys understood. And that's another reason why I make my own pattern pieces as well, because I kind of make it as I go. So I'm gonna sit that to the side. So I'm going to make this piece a little bit bigger, like my front piece is. So let me figure out how to cut this. Making sure that you still follow the line in which the pieces is going. And I'm only cutting it, you know, maybe a 1/4 of an inch larger, but and I'm using my serger to serge it, so I don't have much of a seam allowance. So now we have 2 back pieces, because it's 2 back pieces per each front piece. So remember, right size up for each pattern piece, unless your commercial pattern tells you to flip it right side down, because some patterns, depending on how you have to sew it, and for the like if it's like a crisscross or something like that, you have to sew one side right side up and the other side right side down. So make sure you follow your instructions of the commercial pattern. This video was only strictly just to show you guys how to get the shape of it, and I'm using a fabric that's the same on both sides. So I don't want to sound like a broke record, but I want to make sure that you guys understand that. So you have piece 10, which is the front, and again you have piece 3, I'm sorry, which is the back. And it also tells you that you have, it tells you to cut 2 of these, and this will be 1 because you're cutting it on the fold. So all right, so now we have 2 pieces for the back, and I have 2 pieces for the other one. So I have 4 pieces, which each back piece has 2 pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and, excuse my dog, he's outside. So I'm going to go ahead and get my images printed for my Juneteenth images made and printed, and then I'll be back when it's time to sub these items. Okay guys, so we're back. Now we have our bodysuits. We have them cut out. Now it's time to sublimate on them. I just have it placed on my heat press. Well, placing it on my heat press. And I'm going to flatten it out, which is already flattened. Now, because this is going to be a one shoulder, I can't press it high up, so it's going to have to come down a little bit. And when you're subbing, if you want to do a pinch it in the middle so you can get a middle point, you can also get a middle point from the item that you're subbing. Just fold it in half. If you want to slightly press it for a second, just to get a middle crease, you can do that. And then you can line your crease up. So my crease is here. And remember, this fabric is the same as front and back, so either side is going to press the same. So I'm going to line up my middle marker with the middle marker here. And I have to bring it down just a little bit because remember, I am doing a one shoulder, so I need to bring it down some. And I'm going to put some heat tape on here. You want to always use heat tape on your garments when you're subbing them to keep the garment from ghosting. So I'm going to put my heat tape on here, and let me get my butcher paper. Well, you know, I'm gonna just use this Teflon sheet right here. So I have my Teflon sheet on here, and you can use butcher paper too, which, you know, I mostly use butcher paper. So I'm going to press this for 60 seconds, and then I'll come back with the results. Okay, it's been 60 seconds. So now we're going to pull our press out. Push it up so you guys can see it. I'm going to remove my Teflon sheet, and we'll see the results of the sublimation. And it's subbed beautiful. This is a Juneteenth photo shoot that I am doing, and all of my designs will be Juneteenth inspired. So this is one that says break every chain, if you guys can see it. So now we're going to go over to the table, and we're getting ready to sew it together. So let's go back to the table. Okay guys, so now we're back at the table. This is the front of our bodysuits that I'm doing, and these are the two back pieces. So you got to get your two back pieces, and we're going to sew down the center back seam. Now this is the center back seam here. I've seen some people get confused and sew down the side seams, where this is where the armholes and stuff is. No, you don't sew that. You sew the long seam in the back, and it's your center back seam. So we're going to sew down the back of the bodysuit, and then we're going to sew the front and the back pieces together. So I am going to serge mine. If you guys, I'm going to serge it and then I'll hem it. But if you guys are going to use your sewing machine, I would use a 5/8 inch seam allowance, and I will sew it with a zigzag stitch because you want to be able to still have the give in the stretch. If you use a straight stitch, a lot of times if the person is slightly a little bit bigger than what the bodysuit is or whatever it is that you're sewing, sometimes the stitches can pop. And it doesn't mean because of the size. Sometimes stitches can sometimes pop when it's necessarily to be snug fitting. So you want to make sure to keep the stretch in the garment. So you want to use a zigzag stitch, and you have to look and see if your sewing machine has a stretch stitch, that will be better. If it does not, you can use a zigzag stitch, or if you have a serger like myself, you can just serge it. So I'm going to use my serger, and I'm going to serge the center back seam here. And make sure when you're sewing, make sure you're sewing right sides together. And as I stated, you know, this fabric is the same on both sides, so it doesn't really matter. But make sure that when you sew yours, if it's not the same type of fabric as this, you want to make sure that you are sewing right sides together. And if you are not a advanced sewer, pin your pieces together so that they will always align up with each other. I didn't pin mine, but I mean, I'm not really a pinner, but I want to make sure that if you guys are not used to sewing a lot, always pin your fabric. Okay, so we got that, and you want to always cut your threads. And with the serger, it just gives you a very clean finish. You don't see any thread or fabric poking out. It gives you a very professional, clean finish when you're done with it. So we're going to lay. Now we have a right side, because this is the right side of the bodysuit, because this is the side that people are going to see, because this is the side with the design. So this is the right side, and being that the stitching is on this side, this now is the right side. So your stitching is facing you, and your design is inside of the right sides will be facing each other, if that makes sense. You just want to make sure that you are sewing right sides together. And as I stated, if you guys are not really good with sewing, always pin your fabrics so that your fabrics are even on both sides, because you don't want to have used more seam allowance on one side and then you're tugging and pulling on the other side to get it to line up correctly. So you just want to make sure that you are using pins, and you want to line your seam up like this. You want to have both seams. You want to have both seams meeting each other. So that's what you want. And then you'll also remember sewing right sides together. So I'm going to sew down both side seams. cut your threads. And you want to sew your crotch and your other side seam together. So you just want to line your crotch up like so. You want to line it up like this, and you want to sew straight across the crotch. And then you want to sew, we're going to sew down the other side seams and the shoulder seams, and then it'll be time to hem. So I'm going to go ahead and sew down my crotch, my other side seam, and my shoulder seams. And once I'm done sewing these last pieces, I'll come back and show you what we do next to hem it. Okay, so this is what it looks like once we have sewn our crotch together. We have sewn both this side seam and this side seam, and we have sewn together the shoulder seams. So now, because this is a one shoulder bodysuit, it's time for me now to cut. And I just cut the side seam, the side off, so that I can make it a one shoulder. Sorry guys, that's my printer going off. So I want to make sure that my bodysuit is completely flat and there are no puckers or wrinkles in it, because you want to make sure you get a really good precise cut. So I just eyeball it. Let me pull it down so you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay, so I just eyeball it. So I am going to just cut at the armpit and curve it all the way around to meet this shoulder point. And that's how you make it a one shoulder. All I've done is you start at your armpit and go all the way up. So you go from armpit to the opposite shoulder seam. You don't want to cut into the shoulder seam, because if you do, it may not lay correctly. It may slouch off of the shoulder. And a lot of times when you're doing one shoulders, you want to let them try it on so that you can make sure that this piece is going to fit them correctly. So you want to make sure you do that as well when you're doing a one shoulder, because a lot of times when you're cutting it, when you cut it like that, it does make it open up or be a little wider than it would be if you kept it as a whole bodysuit. So a lot of times you do have to take this part in, depending on if the person is, you know, top heavy, you may not, but you just want a rule of thumb when you're cutting things at an angle as such. You want to make sure that you have your shoulder, armpit to shoulder measurement when you're going to do a one shoulder. So you want to make sure that this piece is going to be the correct size that it should be, so that if you make it and ship it off to somebody, it won't have to have any alterations to it. So just making sure when you're sewing things, especially if you're sewing it for someone and they're not going to come over to try it on. So you just want to make sure you always get, if you're doing a one shoulder, get the armpit to opposite shoulder measurement, so you can make sure that the measurement is correct. So now that we have cut our fabric, we subbed our fabric, we sewed our fabric, now it's time to hem it. So we're going to flip our garment inside out. And then when you flip it inside out, you want to make sure when you're sewing things, you want to make sure you have a really good finish. You know, you want to make sure you have good raw edges. And, you know, even if you have a sewing machine and you have to zigzag stitch it, you want to make sure that you have really good, a clean finish on the inside like you have on the outside. Especially if you're planning to sell these garments. Okay, so Now we're getting ready to hem this fabric. So you're going to fold it over once, and then you're going to fold it over again. Now, if you're not really good with folding it over once and folding it over again, if you're not really good with that, please pin your fabric, because you want to make sure that your hem looks just as finished and nice as the rest of your garment. So you can just go through it, fold it again. And you want to fold it at a 1/4 inch and then fold it again as a 1/4 inch, so it'll be 1/2 inch as a seam allowance. And then you just want to pin. And you want to do that all the way around. Fold it in once. And then fold it in again. My fingernails won't let me be great, and they're not even long. But you get the gist of it. I don't really use pins, but I just kind of fold it as I'm hemming it. But you do want to fold it over once, a 1/4 inch, and then you want to fold it over again, and then you want to hem that all the way around for the, we're going to hem the shoulder. So we're going to hem the shoulder, the crotch seams, this seam, and you're going to hem the armhole. So armhole, this is the new neckline because you made it a one shoulder, so you're gonna hem the neckline, armhole, and both of the sides of the crotch. So you want to use that same technique. You want to fold it over 1/2 inch, fold it in again 1/2 inch, so that the raw edge of your seam will be inside and you won't be able to see it on the outside. Because remember, whatever you do to the outside just as clean, you want to be able to make sure the inside of your garments are just as clean as the outside. I am going to go ahead and hem all of my pieces, and then I will come back with a final result, what it's going to look like. Okay guys, so this is the final result. This is our custom made one shoulder sublimated bodysuit, and I have it pinned to the mannequin because the mannequin is just a little smaller than the bodysuit. So that's why I'm only doing a front and side view of it. But this is the completed version with all the seams hemmed, with a zigzag stitch, and this is it. And the colors look really, really good. Can't wait to shoot. If you guys like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And if you guys do happen to make anything that I post on this channel, I do have a Facebook group called Sewing and Crafting with Sharon. I would love for you guys to come over and be a part of the Facebook group with me as well, so I can see all the wonderful things that you guys craft or sew. So this is the final result again. And have a happy evening, you guys. So like I said, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I would love to see you guys' creations. Have a good one.